We've all heard it. Fake it till you make it. It sounds harmless, even inspiring. But what if this catchy little phrase did more than boost confidence? What if it fueled some of the most catastrophic startup collapses in modern history? Theranos, WeWork, Fire Festival? In this video, we'll uncover the real origins of this quote, how it was misunderstood, weaponized, and why it still seduces founders and investors alike. The truth is, it was never meant to build billion-dollar companies, and by the end, you'll understand how one misused idea helped destroy billions. Fake it till you make it. You've probably seen it printed on mugs, tossed around in business schools, or slid into inspirational Instagram posts. It sounds bold, even liberating. It tells you that confidence can come first, credentials second. In a world obsessed with results, this quote offers a shortcut. Act the part, and the success will follow. That's the appeal. It promises transformation without accountability. Just posture, and the universe will reward your effort. But what if that's not how it works? What if the very idea is built on a dangerous misunderstanding? In Silicon Valley, this quote didn't just catch on, it took over. Startups thrive on potential, not proof. Founders pitch visions before they have products, raise millions on ideas that may never materialize. In that environment, fake it till you make it feels like survival strategy. It becomes a license to exaggerate, inflate, and speculate. The culture of disruption rewards boldness and punishes humility. So when a founder acts like the next Steve Jobs before building anything at all, they're not seen as a fraud, they're seen as a visionary. But here's the twist. The original idea behind fake it till you make it wasn't about deceiving others. It came from psychology, not pitch decks. Behavioral therapists found that if you act confident, even when you're not, your brain starts to believe it. Smile and you'll feel happier. Speak up and you'll feel stronger. It was a tool for internal change, a way to rewire habits and boost self-belief. Somewhere along the way, though, the quote got hijacked. What started as self-help quietly became a justification for performance, not improvement. The phrase doesn't belong to one person, but the idea traces back over a century. Psychologist Alfred Adler promoted the notion that behavior can shape emotion, that acting as if you are confident leads to actual confidence. Later, it showed up in cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational seminars, even 12-step programs. But no one credible ever used it to advocate lying or manipulating others for gain. It was never a business tactic. It was a mental model, a personal strategy for building resilience, not revenue. Still, by the late 2000s, the quote had migrated from therapy rooms to boardrooms. In Silicon Valley's performative culture, image often precedes substance. Founders adopted uniforms, black turtlenecks, Allbirds, TED Talk hand gestures. Branding came before balance sheets. Pitch decks promised revolutions, even when the tech didn't exist. Fake it till you make it became a kind of theater, not a process of growth, but a script to perform. And when everyone's acting, who's left to ask what's real? No one embodied this mindset more completely than Elizabeth Holmes. She didn't just fake a medical breakthrough, she reportedly lowered her voice in public to sound more authoritative. That deep, deliberate tone became part of her brand. The lab coat, the black turtleneck, all carefully constructed. Holmes didn't see herself as lying. She saw herself as projecting what success should look and sound like. But Theranos wasn't just an illusion. It was a health tech company making life or death promises it couldn't keep. And that's where fake it turns into something far more dangerous. Billy McFarland didn't build Fire Festival on logistics or planning. He built it on branding. Glossy PowerPoint decks, Instagram models, private jets, and crystal clear waters. It all looked flawless. But behind the scenes, there were no toilets, no infrastructure, no artist booked. McFarland wasn't just selling tickets. He was selling a fantasy. He believed if he faked the image hard enough, reality would catch up. It didn't, and the crash was public, humiliating, and criminal. Still, the thinking was the same. Perform success, and people will invest in the dream. Adam Neumann wasn't just selling office space, he was selling a lifestyle, a movement. He talked about elevating human consciousness, blurring the line between spiritual guru and CEO. Investors were dazzled. WeWork's valuation hit $47 billion, even though the core business wasn't profitable. Neumann's charisma became the product. Fake it till you make it lived in every keynote, every pitch, but the numbers never matched the narrative. And when WeWork finally filed for IPO, the illusion cracked. Like Theranos and Fire, belief had outpaced reality. Theranos, Fire Festival, WeWork, different industries, same script. Each founder used the fake it mentality, not as a tool for inner confidence, but as a strategy to avoid scrutiny. The quote became a shield. If you questioned the substance, you just didn't get the vision. But beneath the charisma and pitch decks was a consistent pattern, bending the truth to buy time. In each case, the faking didn't stop when the money came in. It kept going, until it collapsed under its own weight. This wasn't ambition, it was evasion. What began as a therapeutic technique, act the way you want to feel, had been weaponized into a business doctrine. A catchy, seemingly harmless phrase turned into a rationalization for exaggeration, denial, and sometimes outright fraud. And it worked for a while. These companies attracted billions in funding, built cult-like followings, and dominated headlines, but none of them were built to last. In the gap between who they were and who they pretended to be, everything unraveled. That's the real cost of misusing a mantra. Confidence, on its own, isn't the problem. Studies show that people often succeed by projecting self-assurance, even before they feel it. That's called impression management, right? And it can be useful, but there's a fine line between managing impressions and manipulating truth. Once you start bending reality to fit your image, you're not just selling yourself, you're selling a lie. Psychologists warn that repeated deception can dull a person's sense of guilt, leading to more risk-taking, more denial, and eventually collapse. Entrepreneurs are supposed to dream big. That's part of the job. But when the vision becomes untethered from reality, when the future you're selling has no foundation, it turns into delusion. Founders often begin with good intentions, but as the pressure mounts, they start believing their own mythology. It's a psychological defense. If you're already acting successful, maybe you are. This is where cognitive dissonance creeps in. Either the mind protects itself by denying the gap between image and truth, but denial doesn't build companies, it buries them. Inside Theranos, science took a backseat to storytelling. Whistleblowers like Erica Chung and Tyler Schultz described a culture obsessed with appearances. The machines didn't work, the results were unreliable, but the image, the turtleneck, the Steve Jobs comparisons, the secretive aura, was everything. Employees were pressured to stay quiet, investors were kept in the dark. Fake it till you make it wasn't just a slogan at Theranos, it became the actual business strategy. And it worked, until it didn't, because molecules don't respond to mythology. Behind the viral Fire Festival campaign was a startup in free fall. Vendors weren't being paid, housing didn't exist, artists started pulling out, but McFarland kept selling the dream, telling staff to keep quiet and push forward. Why? Because the image was still generating cash. It was too lucrative to stop. He wasn't organizing a festival anymore, he was staging a fantasy, hoping money would fill in the missing pieces later. When it all fell apart, it wasn't just a fraud, it was a business built entirely on pretending the problems didn't exist. Adam Neumann turned storytelling into currency. He called WeWork a tech company, even though it rented office space. He promised a future of we schools, we banks, even a we city on Mars. The board and investors applauded. He wasn't building toward reality, he was expanding a personal myth. That charisma gave him cover. It let him avoid hard questions. Every red flag got rebranded as part of the vision, but charisma doesn't pay leases or fix losses. Eventually, when WeWork filed for IPO, the financials told a different story. Belief couldn't balance the books. These founders didn't fool everyone, they didn't have to. Many investors saw the cracks and still chose to believe. Why? Because early belief often brings massive returns. Betting on the image can be profitable until it isn't. In venture capital, backing a breakout founder is like buying a lottery ticket. So warning signs get rationalized, numbers get overlooked. As long as the next round is bigger than the last, there's no reason to stop. Fake it till you make it wasn't just a risk, like it was the business model, and everyone had stock in the illusion. It wasn't just founders and investors, the whole ecosystem played along. Tech media celebrated visionaries, not accountants. Growth was more exciting than governance. Magazines put Holmes on covers, conference stages welcomed Neumann. Influencers promoted fire without asking questions. In this culture, raising capital meant you were right. The quote became a cycle like, pretend, attract attention, raise money, then repeat. In that environment, faking it wasn't deception, it was the norm, and the more people bought in, the harder it became to tell the truth from the show. Eventually, reality caught up. Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty of fraud. Billy McFarland was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Adam Neumann was forced out of WeWork, and the company lost billions in value. These weren't isolated incidents, they were the predictable end of a dangerous pattern. One that started with a catchy phrase and spiraled into systemic deceit. Fake it till you make it turned ambition into risk and risk into collapse. The myth made headlines, but the truth came with courtrooms, layoffs, and ruined lives. Inside each of these collapsing empires were people who saw the truth and spoke up. At Theranos, lab workers risked their careers to report faulty results. At Fire, employees begged McFarland to delay or cancel the event. At WeWork, staff quietly questioned the numbers while watching money burn. These weren't bitter outsiders, they were loyal insiders trying to stop the spin before it hurt more people, and in most cases they were silenced, sidelined, or forced out. The myth devoured its own believers. Speaking up meant stepping into the line of fire. This wasn't just a story of tech hype or failed festivals. It was a story of broken trust. Real people were hurt. Patients relied on Theranos for critical blood tests and got misleading results. Attendees spent thousands to fly to a music festival that didn't exist. Hundreds of WeWork employees lost jobs and savings as the company unraveled. The idea that fake it till you make it is harmless or collapses under the weight of those outcomes. It wasn't just risky, it was reckless, and in the end, it was ordinary people who paid the price. You can fake charisma, you can fake branding, you can even fake a voice or an office or a concert lineup, but there's a hard limit. You can't fake blood test results, you can't fake a music festival into existence, you can't fake financial documents when regulators come calling. Eventually, illusion runs into something immovable, biology, logistics, law, and in that moment, all the borrowed confidence in the world can't protect you. That's the endgame of fake it till you make it when it's used as a mask instead of a mirror. Before it became a startup mantra, fake it till you make it was a tool for personal growth. Psychologists used it to help people reframe how they saw themselves, not how they deceived others. Nervous public speakers would stand tall, breathe deep, and act confident to rewire their internal state. It wasn't about lying, it was about practicing a new version of yourself until it felt real. The goal was authenticity, not performance. Somewhere along the way, that quiet, useful idea got hijacked and turned into a license to mislead. Research backs the idea that behavior can shape belief, but only within limits. Amy Cuddy's work on power poses, while debated, pointed to a real psychological effect. Posture changes perception. Cognitive behavioral therapy uses similar methods, encouraging people to change actions to influence thoughts. But there's a key element: honesty. These tools only work when they're grounded in truth and reflection. Without that, the line between self-improvement and self-deception blurs quickly. The science supports growth, not theater. There's a difference between change that starts inside and change that's only worn on the surface. Leaders who fake competence without building it create shaky foundations. Teams suffer, products break, trust erodes. But when someone uses fake it to practice bravery or develop a skill, the change becomes real. Slowly, honestly. That's the original lesson. Behavior can lead, but only if truth follows. Performance without substance is a temporary disguise. But growth backed by effort, that's the kind of making it that actually lasts. Instead of fake it till you make it, what if we tried something more honest and trusnudo and still empowering? Try practice until you progress, or be real, but stretch. These alternatives don't ask you to lie or posture. They invite you to grow gradually without pretending you're already there. They leave space for truth and effort to coexist. Confidence doesn't need to be an act. It can be built one step at a time. Illusion is fragile, but small, steady growth, that's the kind of foundation that holds. For founders building companies today, the lesson is clear. You don't have to fake it. In fact, you shouldn't. Customers and investors are more discerning than ever. Authenticity isn't a weakness, it's a competitive advantage. And the startups that survive aren't the loudest. They're the ones that deliver. Focus on clarity, not charisma. Show real progress, not polished decks. The hype bubble has popped, and what's left is the truth. Long-term trust always beats short-term spin. On a personal level, the quote still has a heartbeat if you use it right. Fake it till you make it can help you face fears, build courage, or practice confidence in moments of doubt. But when it becomes a mask you wear too long, it backfires. You start believing the act instead of doing the work. You chase image instead of improvement. Used wisely, it's a tool for growth. Misused, it's a trap for ego. The difference? Self-awareness. Knowing when you're stretching and when you're slipping. The good news is culture is catching up. Whistleblowers are being celebrated, not shamed. Transparency is becoming a selling point. Investors are digging deeper, asking better questions, and audiences are smarter. They spot the difference between polish and purpose. We're moving away from the myth that confidence alone builds success. Substance is making a comeback. And maybe that's the clearest sign that the age of performative hustle is finally losing its grip. So here's the question worth sitting with. Have you ever faked it too far? What did it cost? A relationship, a job, your own peace of mind? And if you'd been honest with yourself or others, what might have changed? Sometimes the bravest thing isn't pretending you're ready. It's admitting that you're not, and showing up anyway. That's the difference between a mask and a mirror, and we all get to choose which one we use. In a world that rewards performance, authenticity feels rare and powerful. The real lesson of fake it till you make it isn't about pretending. It's about showing up even when you're uncertain, being bold enough to try while being honest enough to say, I'm still learning. That's not weakness. That's how real progress starts, not with illusion, but with integrity. And in the end, that's a truth worth keeping. If this story made you rethink the meaning of fake it till you make it, take a second to subscribe. We dig into the hidden history behind the ideas we all take for granted, and the real people they impact. Liking the video helps more people find it, and your voice matters here. So tell us in the comments, have you ever felt pressured to project confidence you didn't feel in work and life in front of others? And do you think we should retire this phrase altogether, or just use it more carefully? Let's start a conversation that's honest, no faking required.